When you mess with time, time tends to mess back. That single line from Tony Stark in Avengers Endgame might have sounded like another one of his trademark quips. But what if it wasn't just clever writing? What if it was foreshadowing, not for Kang, not for Loki, but for Tony himself? Because in the grand design of the multiverse, every choice has a shadow, and every hero eventually faces the consequence of their own genius. And today, I'm breaking down a theory so wild, so connected to Endgame, that it might just rewrite everything we thought we knew about the MCU's future. The Russo brothers have already teased that Avengers Doomsday will tie directly to Endgame. But what if that connection isn't about the heroes who survived, but about the one who didn't? Could Tony Stark's story, the man who ended Endgame, secretly be the beginning of Doomsday? I've broken down these details in such a way that they'll leave you shocked. And trust me, you'll only understand the full theory if you watch till the very end. So here's my question to you. What if Tony Stark didn't die the way we think he did? And what if time itself decided to bring him back? But not as Iron Man? Welcome back to MovieCast. I'm Liam Harrison, and today we're diving into the untold story that begins after Avengers Endgame. A story that connects every timeline, every reality, and every consequence of the Avengers time heist. The way I see it, the seeds of Doomsday were planted long before Thanos snapped his fingers, and they sprouted the moment Tony Stark decided to challenge the natural flow of time. See, the time heist wasn't just a brilliant plan to undo the snap. It was a cosmic level disturbance. The Avengers didn't just steal Infinity Stones. They stole moments from fate itself. When Tony told Scott Lang, when you mess with time, time tends to mess back, it wasn't just caution, it was prophecy. Because time did mess back. And it didn't go after the universe. It went after the man who dared to fix it. Now, to understand where Doomsday truly begins, we need to go back, not to 2023, but to 2012, the Battle of New York. The moment that defined the Avengers, and ironically, the moment that fractured reality itself. In Endgame, the plan was simple. Tony, Steve, Hulk, and Scott would travel back to 2012 to grab two stones, the Tesseract and the Mind Stone. But if you remember, things went sideways. Loki escaped with the Tesseract, vanishing into thin air. And that single, chaotic moment wasn't just a small detour, it was the spark that burned a hole straight through the sacred timeline. Now, the TVA in Loki later called this a branch timeline, something that needed pruning. But what they didn't tell us, what nobody realized, is that the timeline where Loki escaped wasn't the only one that changed. The timeline the Avengers returned to, the one we call Timeline 1, was also left permanently scarred. Because when you interact with your past self, you don't just change events, you change perception. And no one's perception changed more than Tony Stark's. Let's imagine it for a second. 2012. Tony Stark, fresh off defeating the Chitauri, basking in newfound fame, but also shaken to his core. He's paranoid, obsessed with protection, and already haunted by what could come next. That version of Tony is watching everything, every street, every satellite feed, every trace of energy in New York. Now imagine Jarvis detecting an anomaly, a strange temporal energy signature, and not just one, but four. Among them, two signals with the exact same biosignature as Tony Stark himself. That means 2012, Tony suddenly realizes that somewhere in his city, another Tony Stark exists. You can almost hear him muttering, "What the hell am I looking at, Jarvis?" He'd start running scans, simulations, and readings, digging through every scrap of data to understand how that's even possible. And when Tony investigates, he doesn't stop halfway. He'd tear through every law of physics until he finds an answer. Because to him, ignorance isn't peace, it's torture. And that's where the descent begins. As Tony dives deeper into the anomaly, he starts seeing patterns, quantum fluctuations, particles phasing in and out of temporal stability, a faint residue that seems to pulse with infinite potential. It's the same kind of signature left by Pym particles. He studies it, replicates it, and begins experimenting in secret. Remember, this is 2012 Tony, arrogant, unrestrained, still without the scars of Ultron or Civil War. If the man who built Ultron in 2015 thought he could protect the world by creating artificial intelligence, imagine what 2012 Tony would do after discovering the multiverse. This version of Tony would go far beyond science. He'd start questioning existence itself. Because if there are multiple versions of him, if other Tonys are walking around making their own decisions, then what does choice even mean? And that's where the whispers begin. Somewhere, in the cracks between timelines, a name echoes, He Who Remains. Now here's where it gets fascinating. The TVA pruned Loki's branch timeline, but not before Tony accessed some of its signals. Through temporal data and quantum algorithms, he starts to realize that these variants aren't accidents. They're designed. Someone, or something, is controlling how and when these realities exist. He discovers traces of time energy behaving like a network, as if the entire multiverse were under constant surveillance. And for a man like Tony Stark, that's unacceptable. He spent his life rebelling against control, against oversight, from S.H.I.E.L.D., from governments, from even the Avengers themselves. But now he's facing something far bigger. Someone is controlling everything. And that realization breaks him. You see, Tony's philosophy has always been about prevention. Build the suit around the world. End the fight before it begins. But now, faced with the idea that his every move was written by another being, Tony's entire identity collapses. If He Who Remains dictates every choice, then Tony's sacrifice, his victories, his guilt, none of it was truly his. That thought poisons his mind. And slowly, his obsession with freedom twists into a desire for control. Because in Tony's logic, if one man can control the multiverse, why shouldn't it be him? At least he'd make it fair. At least he'd make it better. And this is where we see the first flicker of something darker. A seed that won't bloom until years later, but when it does, it changes the MCU forever. Tony begins experimenting with temporal energy. He weaponizes time signatures, rewires quantum stabilizers, and starts merging multiversal physics with Stark tech. Jarvis warns him it's dangerous, but Tony keeps pushing. He wants to understand what He Who Remains sees when he looks at reality, because Tony intends to build something greater. It's around this time that Tony starts designing something unprecedented. A suit not powered by arc reactors or nanotech, but by multiversal convergence energy. A living conduit between timelines. Each piece of armor drawing strength from an infinite number of versions of himself. It's genius. It's terrifying. And it's the first prototype of what the multiverse will one day call the Doom Armor. But before we reach that transformation, something else happens. Tony's experiments begin affecting his body. The temporal radiation scars his skin. His neural pathways start syncing with the armor's code, fusing man and machine. He stops sleeping, stops eating. He becomes obsessed. And in one chilling moment, alone, surrounded by data screens and flickering holograms of himself, he looks at his reflection and whispers, He Who Remains thinks he controls everything, but now I remain. That's the moment Tony Stark ceases to be Iron Man and begins to become something else entirely. Now remember, all of this is still unfolding in the background of the main MCU timeline. The Avengers of 2012 have no idea that one of their own is rewriting the laws of time from within a branch that shouldn't even exist. While the heroes are celebrating victory, Tony is constructing a throne. And when the TVA later prunes Loki's timeline, Tony's branch remains hidden, shielded by his own temporal tech, invisible to their scans. He's essentially a ghost in the multiverse, a remnant of a forgotten branch, fueled by Stark intelligence and cosmic obsession. Over time, this version of Tony learns to stabilize his decaying body. He integrates temporal armor into his physiology until he no longer ages. He can travel through realities without breaking them. And in his mind, he's convinced himself he's the only one worthy of such power. The line between Savior and God finally blurs. I believe this is where the foundation of Avengers Doomsday begins. Because years later, long after Kang's defeat, long after Strange's battles with the multiverse, the Avengers start detecting something new. Strange notices at first faint ripples across dimensions. Not destructive, but synchronizing. Banner studies the readings and realizes the energy pattern looks eerily familiar, almost like Stark tech. But not quite. These waves aren't coming from any existing universe, Banner says. They're converging toward ours, and that's when portals start to open. A figure steps out, not in red and gold, but in dark, burnished armor laced with temporal energy. His mask gleams like molten silver, his eyes burn with faint blue light, and when he speaks, his voice is calm, deliberate, almost sorrowful. You played with time. Now time plays with you. Strange looks at him and whispers, "Tony?" But the man in armor shakes his head. Tony Stark was the beginning. Doom is the end. And that's where everything changes. Because Doomsday doesn't mean the destruction of a world. It means the convergence of all worlds. It's Tony's final plan, to merge every universe into one perfect timeline. No chaos, no variance, no suffering. A universe built in his image. This isn't about revenge. It's about correction. Tony believes he's fixing what he who remains broke. He's ending the chaos that comes from infinite timelines by collapsing them into one unified existence, one where free will no longer causes pain. It's the ultimate illusion of peace. And yet, deep down, it's still driven by Tony's greatest flaw, control. Because the man who once built a suit of armor around the world now wants to build one around reality itself. By this point, Tony Stark no longer sees himself as human. He's evolved, a being of both logic and guilt, of brilliance and madness. His voice echoes through every reality he's absorbed. He's not a conqueror like Kang, not a god like Loki. He's something worse, a believer. He believes he's saving us. And that's what makes him terrifying. Because when the Avengers finally realize who he is, when Strange and Banner and Sam look at the man behind the mask, they don't just see an enemy. They see the ghost of a friend who once gave everything for them, and now, in his twisted form, is about to take it all back. That's the tragedy of Avengers Doomsday. It's not the end of the multiverse. It's the end of Tony Stark. When the man in armor whispered, "Tony Stark was the beginning. Doom is the end." Something changed in that moment, not just for the Avengers, but for the entire concept of the MCU itself. Because think about it. The one person who built the Avengers, who gave his life to save the universe, is now standing against everything he once stood for. But this isn't a story of resurrection or revenge. It's a story about consequence, about how time itself decided to repay a debt. I think what's so fascinating here is how poetic it all feels. Endgame was about closing a chapter, but Doomsday, it's about reopening the one Tony thought he'd ended. The time heist didn't just retrieve stones, it left fingerprints all over reality. And no one left deeper prints than Tony Stark. So now let's trace them back to the years between 2012 and the moment Doom finally returns. The years where Tony Stark, forgotten by the sacred timeline, becomes something entirely different. In the hidden corners of what we call Timeline 1, Tony continues his descent. He's not dead. He's not alive. He's caught in a state of perpetual existence, stabilized by his armor's multiversal core. Every second, his suit draws infinitesimal energy from countless alternate selves across the multiverse, like a network of infinite reactors all linked to him. He begins to explore other realities. At first, it's curiosity. He visits fragments of timelines where the Avengers lost, worlds where Thanos won, worlds where he never became Iron Man. And the more he sees, the more he realizes one horrifying truth. Across every version of reality, chaos is constant. Humanity keeps repeating the same mistakes: war, greed, fear, destruction. Even in worlds without Thanos, something else rises to take his place. Tony starts to think, if peace can't exist naturally, maybe it has to be designed. It's the same logic that birthed Ultron, but magnified to a cosmic scale. Over time, Tony learns to manipulate the very flow of time. He doesn't need a time stone or quantum tunnel anymore. He's found a way to anchor himself in the multiverse, to exist in all points simultaneously, seeing events unfold across countless versions of Earth at once. Imagine watching infinite screens, each showing a different version of yourself making different choices. Some save the world, some destroy it, some die alone. That kind of omniscience doesn't grant peace. It fractures the soul. I think that's the key to understanding this version of Tony. He's not just corrupted by power, he's corrupted by perspective. He's seen too much. And when you see every possible mistake, every heartbreak, every tragedy repeating endlessly, something inside you breaks. He starts to believe that true freedom doesn't come from choice. It comes from order, from structure, from control. And that belief becomes his new purpose. To achieve that, Tony starts experimenting with temporal fusion. Essentially, he begins merging fragments of realities, absorbing timelines that are about to collapse, folding them into his own to stabilize his multiversal armor. Each fusion gives him new knowledge, new power, but also new pain. He begins to hear echoes of other Tonys in his mind. Some beg for release, some scream in defiance. Some simply whisper, "Stop!" But he can't stop. Because by now, Tony doesn't see himself as one man. He's the collective consciousness of countless Stark minds. And with every merge, his body becomes less human. His armor evolves, no longer built by human hands, but by the will of pure energy. Its color shifts from metallic silver to obsidian black with glowing veins of gold. The faceplate morphs into something colder, more regal. Its edges sharp, like a crown. He doesn't call it Iron Man anymore. He names it what he's become: Doom. Meanwhile, across other realities, the ripples of his actions begin to spread. Strange anomalies occur, identical star alignments, repeating cosmic events, and duplicate versions of heroes appearing in worlds they shouldn't exist in. Doctor Strange notices first. In the Sanctum, he studies dimensional readings that seem mirrored. Same energy, same coordinates, but from different timelines converging at once. "This shouldn't be possible," he says. Realities don't synchronize unless something is forcing them to. Banner picks up similar readings in his lab. The data is chaotic, massive surges of quantum energy that appear and vanish without trace. "It's like the universe is breathing," he mutters, inhaling and exhaling timelines. And somewhere, deep within the fabric of time, Doom watches. He doesn't attack yet. He observes, calculates, tests the strength of the multiverse he's about to claim. Because for him, this isn't war, it's architecture. He's building the final structure of existence itself. Now here's something I find chilling. In one of the hidden universes Tony explores, he encounters an echo, a version of He Who Remains. Not the one we saw in Loki, but an older fragment, decayed and weakened by entropy. This version exists at the edge of time, surrounded by ruins of the TVA. Tony stands before him, armored, silent. He Who Remains smiles faintly. So, you found me. I was wondering when one of you would. Tony doesn't speak at first. Then through his modulated voice, he asks, "You wrote the timelines, didn't you? You built the script. Every victory, every loss, all of it." The old man nods. Someone had to. Tony tilts his head. "Then you know what I'm going to do." He Who Remains sighs. "Yes, and you'll think you're fixing things until you realize you've only replaced one prison with another." Tony's armor glows. "Maybe, but this time, the warden understands the inmates." He raises his hand, and with a pulse of pure temporal energy, the last remnant of He Who Remains disintegrates. And in that instant, the sacred timeline dies. From that point onward, the multiverse begins to collapse in waves. Not destruction, unification. Realities start folding inward, like gravity drawing everything to a single point. Dr. Doom. Tony Stark becomes the new axis of existence. But this new order doesn't go unnoticed. The Watcher senses the disturbance first. He narrates it in silence, unable to interfere, but we see the horror reflected in his eyes. One man has decided that time should serve him, and the multiverse obeys. Then comes the response, reality's immune system, the heroes. Doctor Strange, sensing an approaching catastrophe, reaches out to what remains of the Avengers. Not just on Earth 616, but across surviving realities. The calls go out through time, through the quantum realm, through every portal Strange can open. And scattered versions of the Avengers, some familiar, some new, begin to gather. It's fascinating to imagine how emotional this confrontation will be. For Bruce Banner, it's scientific awe mixed with guilt. He realizes the energy readings he studied years ago, the ones that resembled Stark tech, were actually Tony's signature. His friend, his brother in science, was behind the collapse all along. For Sam Wilson, now leading as Captain America, it's personal. Tony was part of the legacy that built him, that believed in him. And now he has to stand against the very man whose dream of unity has turned into tyranny. And for Strange, it's destiny. He's always been the guardian of reality, but now he's facing someone who's rewritten it. The stage is set, but the players are already haunted by doubt. Because how do you fight someone who's no longer bound by the laws of time? Someone who exists in every version of yourself, every second, every choice. You can't simply defeat him. You have to understand him. And that's where the next phase of this theory begins, the deeper understanding of Tony's transformation. What I love about this concept is how it mirrors Tony's original journey. Back in Iron Man 1, he was trapped in a cave, forging a suit to survive. Now he's trapped in the multiverse, forging a reality to survive his own mind. Everything he's ever done, every invention, every defense mechanism, every contingency has always been about control. He built Ultron to protect the world. He built nanotech to prepare for any threat. But now he's taken that instinct to its final form. He's built order itself. And yet deep down, you can tell, even as Doom, there's still a flicker of the man who once said, "I am Iron Man." You can hear it in the way he speaks, not with anger, but with conviction. He truly believes he's saving everyone. That's what makes him so dangerous. Because villains destroy out of hate. But Tony? He creates out of love, even when that love becomes monstrous. As Doom's influence spreads, his new reality begins to form. Cities across timelines merge into single megastructures. Stark towers appear in every skyline, linked by streams of golden energy. The skies glow with auroras of converging universes. It's beautiful and horrifying at the same time. A new world where time doesn't move forward or backward, but inward. And at the center of it all, in a citadel forged from collapsed realities, Doom sits upon a throne that hums with infinite resonance. His mask gleams under fractal light. His eyes, still human beneath the armor, flicker with memories of who he used to be. He doesn't see himself as a ruler. He sees himself as a caretaker. But outside his citadel, the remnants of the Avengers prepare to challenge him. Strange crafts, a plan using fragments of time itself, a last resort to reach Tony's human side. Banner works tirelessly to understand the quantum code powering Doom's armor, hoping to find a weakness, something that connects him back to the Tony they once knew. And in a quiet moment, Sam whispers, "We're not just fighting Doom. We're fighting the man who built us." Now, here's the fascinating twist that the theory suggests. Doom doesn't actually want to destroy the Avengers. In fact, he needs them. Because to complete his perfect reality, he must integrate the consciousness of every major Nexus being, those who anchor realities. Wanda Maximoff, Stephen Strange, Loki, even Bruce Banner. They're not obstacles. They're components. He intends to merge their essences into his own matrix, believing it will bring balance, like stabilizing variables in an equation. But here's the haunting irony. By trying to eliminate chaos, Tony creates the greatest chaos of all. Because the moment he begins absorbing other Nexus beings, the multiverse starts to resist. Reality itself pushes back like a body rejecting an infection. And that reaction becomes Doomsday. That's where this chapter leads. The point where the multiverse begins tearing itself apart, not out of destruction, but out of self-defense. Tony's attempt to build perfection is met by the universe's instinct to preserve free will. The result? A multiversal storm unlike anything seen before. Universes collapsing, merging, exploding, reforming, the very laws of time unraveling. And as the chaos unfolds, the Avengers realize the truth. They can't just defeat Doom physically. They have to reach the man behind the mask, the one still trapped inside his own creation. Because no matter how godlike Tony becomes, there's still a part of him that remembers why he built the first suit. To protect, to atone, to save. That's where the emotional weight of Doomsday truly lies. It's not about the spectacle of worlds colliding. It's about a broken man trying to fix a broken universe, and in doing so, breaking it even further. And as we move into the next act, the question becomes, how do you save the man who saved the world when he's the one trying to end it? Because if Endgame was about sacrifice, Doomsday will be about redemption. When the universe begins to fracture under its own weight, reality doesn't break quietly, it screams. Skies ripple like glass, oceans rise without gravity, and entire cities blink in and out of existence. The multiverse is collapsing inward, folding into a singular point, the Citadel of Doom. And standing at its center is Tony Stark, or what's left of him, watching everything fall into place, believing he's building perfection out of chaos. But even as he claims victory, something inside him trembles. Because deep beneath the armor, inside the endless hum of machinery and power, echoes of another voice start whispering his own. The voice of the man he used to be. That's where this act begins. The war between Tony Stark and Dr. Doom, inside the same man. Now, before we dive into the Avengers confrontation, I want you to picture the scale of this world. Doom's new reality isn't one planet, one timeline, or one universe. It's all of them combined, an infinite loop of existence collapsing into symmetry. The sky shimmers with fragments of other Earths. There are multiple moons, overlapping suns, and distorted versions of cities merging into one massive living structure. It's beautiful in a terrifying way, a monument to Tony's genius and to his madness. Everywhere, Stark tech pulses with light. Arc reactors line the streets like veins. Machines patrol the skies, not Ultron drones, but quantum automatons powered by Tony's own consciousness. They speak in his voice, think in his patterns, and move with his precision. It's not tyranny born from hatred, it's control born from compassion. He believes this world is peaceful, because no one can hurt anyone. But peace built on fear isn't peace at all. And that's exactly what Doctor Strange realizes when he and the remaining Avengers breach this collapsing world. Their entry point isn't dramatic, it's desperate. Strange uses a spell made from remnants of the Book of Vishanti, fragments that survived Multiverse of Madness. He tears open a controlled rift, guiding Sam Wilson, Bruce Banner, Carol Danvers, and a variant of Spider-Man through. As they step through the portal, the first thing they see is silence. The kind of silence that feels wrong. Streets filled with frozen figures, echoes of people from different worlds fused mid-motion. Banner scans them, his voice trembling. They're not alive. They're data constructs. He copied them, integrated consciousness patterns into his mainframe. Sam looks around, holding his shield tight. Copied or preserved? Strange closes his eyes. He thinks he's saving them, but this isn't life. It's imprisonment. And then the air trembles. A deep hum fills the city. From the horizon, thousands of drones emerge, humanoid shapes forged from blackened nanotech, each bearing the Ark emblem. They move in perfect synchronization, like an army with one heartbeat. And from above, Doom's voice echoes, not angry, not menacing, just calm. Stephen, Bruce, Sam, I knew you'd come. The team prepares for battle, but Doom doesn't attack. He appears in the sky, a massive projection, half human, half machine, his mask glowing with shifting runes. I told you once, he says, if you mess with time, time messes back. Now you've seen what happens when time chooses to fight back through me. Strange steps forward. You're not time, Tony. You're what's left of it, clinging to the illusion that you can fix what was never broken. Doom tilts his head slightly. Broken? Look around. Infinite worlds, infinite pain, infinite suffering. I ended it. I unified existence. There's no more death, no more chaos. Banner snaps back. There's no more life either. For a moment, Doom is silent. Then his projection fades, replaced by an eerie voice surrounding them. Then help me make it perfect. And the drones attack. What follows isn't just a battle. It's a struggle between science and faith, between intellect and heart. Sam flies through the air, shield ricocheting off drones while Carol's energy flares light up the darkened sky. Banner transforms, but even the Hulk struggles. The drones adapt, shifting molecular structures to counter every punch. Strange conjures illusions, splitting into 100 versions of himself to confuse the swarm. But for every one they destroy, two more emerge. The army is infinite, self-regenerating through multiversal feedback. In the chaos, Banner manages to hack one drone mid-fight, linking his gauntlet to its system. His eyes widen. It's him. Every one of them. They're all Tony. He's controlling them from every possible timeline simultaneously. Strange shouts over the noise. Then we can't defeat him from the outside. We have to reach him from within. That's when Strange makes a dangerous decision. One that echoes through the story like a pulse. He plans to enter Doom's mind. Now this is where things get truly fascinating. Strange knows that fighting Tony on a physical plane is pointless. The man exists across all realities. But if he can reach the consciousness buried beneath the armor, the Tony Stark trapped inside, maybe he can bring him back. Using a forbidden spell, Strange separates his astral form and projects himself directly into the core energy field of Doom's armor. For a moment, he vanishes into light. And then he finds himself standing inside what looks like Tony's mind. It's not a normal mental landscape. It's an infinite hall of mirrors, each one reflecting a different version of Tony Stark. Iron Man in the cave, Iron Man with the Mark 85, Tony as a father, Tony as a corpse, Tony as Doom. Every mirror whispers memories, regret, pride, fear. And in the center, chained in glowing code, sits Tony, not Doom, not the god, but the man, the Tony from 2012. He looks up, eyes dim but still burning with the same intelligence that once saved the universe. "Strange," he says quietly. "You shouldn't be here." This is the emotional heart of Doomsday, because for the first time we see that Doom isn't entirely gone. Tony Stark still exists inside the storm he created, but he's been imprisoned by his own creation. The armor, the AI, the power, it's all become sentient in a way. His own obsession evolved into a living entity that now dominates him. Strange kneels beside him. "You built a god out of your guilt, Tony, but you can still stop it. You're still Iron Man." Tony shakes his head weakly. "Iron Man died the day I saw the truth. We don't make choices, Steven. We just follow the script. I'm just trying to rewrite it." Strange replies, "But you're not rewriting it, you're erasing it. You're erasing yourself." For a long moment, Tony just stares into the mirrors, watching endless versions of himself die over and over. Then he whispers, "Maybe that's the only way it ends." Meanwhile, in the real world, the battle intensifies. The Avengers fight valiantly, but Doom's Citadel begins activating a massive core, the Convergence engine. It's designed to fuse the remaining timelines into one singular existence. Banner realizes the device runs on temporal quantum loops, self-sustaining energy drawn from collapsing timelines. "If this completes," he shouts, "every universe will be rewritten into one. There won't be any individuality left." Carol channels all her power, trying to overload the engine, but the energy rebounds, absorbing her blast and growing stronger. Sam takes to the air, calling over comms, "We're running out of time, literally." And somewhere deep inside the Citadel, Tony's consciousness hears that voice. It cuts through the chaos, through the endless hum of his godhood, and for a fleeting second, he remembers Sam's voice, Banner's loyalty, Strange's stubbornness, the team that once stood beside him. That memory starts to fracture the control the Doom entity has over him. Inside Tony's mind, the mirrors begin to shatter one by one. Strange feels the energy spike. Doom is resisting, trying to purge him. The entire mental world shakes. Strange grabs Tony's arm. "Listen to me. You don't have to control everything. You never did. You just had to trust someone else to carry the fight." Tony looks at him. Broken. "Trust got people killed." Strange leans closer. "No, lack of it did." The words hit Tony like a strike, because in his mind he's reliving every mistake, Ultron, Sokovia, Civil War, even his own death. Every time he tried to fix the world, it got worse. Every time he surrendered control, it cost him something. But for the first time in what feels like eternity, he realizes something else. It's not about winning or losing. It's about letting go. And as that thought settles, the armor begins to crack. In the real world, the Citadel trembles. Cracks of light tear through its walls, as if reality itself is trying to reclaim what's been stolen. Banner shouts, "Something's happening! His power output is fluctuating!" Sam looks to the horizon. The drones are faltering, losing synchronization. For the first time, Doom's voice trembles. Inside the mindscape, Tony stands, his eyes glowing. "Steven, if I do this, I might erase myself completely." Strange nods. "Then do it, because Iron Man already proved that one man can change the universe." Tony gives a faint smile, tired, almost peaceful. Guess it's time to prove it again. He raises his hand, and all the mirrors around them ignite. Each reflection of Tony begins merging into him, thousands of versions fusing into one final being. The pure essence of who Tony Stark is, genius, guilt, love, sacrifice, condenses into a single light. And then he looks at Strange and says the line that defines this entire story. "I was once the man who wanted to save the world. Now I'll save what's left of it by setting it free. Outside, Doom's armor erupts with light. The sky fractures into 1,000 shards of energy. The convergence engine shuts down, reversing the collapse. The universes begin to separate again, each returning to its rightful place. Banner watches the reading stabilize. He's doing it. He's undoing the merge. But as the multiverse heals, Doom's physical form starts to disintegrate. The armor melts away, revealing flashes of Tony's face beneath, burned, scarred, and fading. Sam hovers in the air, watching the light consume him. Tony? For a second, the sky clears, and a holographic projection of Tony appears, smiling faintly through the distortion. Tell Morgan, I finally got it right. Then the light engulfs everything. And just like that, Tony Stark, Dr. Doom, disappears into the restored multiverse. When the light fades, the world is quiet again. The Avengers stand in the ruins of what was once the Citadel, surrounded by fragments of shattered universes drifting like stardust. Strange lands beside them, exhausted but alive. Banner runs the final readings and nods. It's over. He separated the timelines again. The multiverse. It's alive. Sam looks to the sky. He did it. And Strange, with a heavy sigh, replies, he always does. But something about the silence feels different this time. Because though Tony's gone, a faint glow lingers in the air. A spark pulsing like an arc reactor. And I think that's the beauty of this entire theory. Tony Stark might die again and again, but his essence, his will to fix, to protect, to create never disappears. It just evolves. Maybe, somewhere out there, in one of the infinite timelines, Tony still exists. Not as Iron Man, not as Doom, but as something in between. Something watching, guiding, waiting for the day the Avengers might need him again. That's where the next act leads, to the aftermath of Doomsday. Because once the multiverse heals, something else begins to stir. A hidden remnant of Doom's code, a spark of Stark's consciousness that refuses to die. And that spark might just become the new foundation of the MCU's next era. When a god falls, the world doesn't cheer, it mourns. Not just for the man who tried to save it, but for the reminder that even salvation has a price. The sky above the Citadel of Doom has cleared. The ripples in reality have stopped. But the silence that follows feels wrong. Because the Avengers didn't just lose Tony Stark again. They lost something far greater, the certainty that the multiverse is safe. And that, my friends, is the full theory, the complete untold story that begins after Endgame and leads directly into Avengers Doomsday. If you've made it this far, thank you, because the details you just heard will shape how you see the entire MCU moving forward. I've broken down every clue, every ripple, every piece of Tony's transformation, and trust me, this is only the beginning. If you love this breakdown, make sure to hit like, share, and subscribe to MovieCast. Drop a super thanks of $20 if you want to directly support the channel. It helps me keep bringing you these deep dive theories that connect every dot the MCU hides in plain sight. And as always, I'm Liam Harrison. This is MovieCast, and I'll see you in the next one. Because remember, in the multiverse of heroes, no story ever truly ends.